Kira Velthani stepped off the transport ship and felt the ground shake under her four legs. The planet Kepler 442b was under attack again. She was used to war zones. As a reporter for the Galactic Union, she had covered dozens of battles across the galaxy. This one should be simple to report on. The Vorthon Empire was winning everywhere. These reptilian aliens were bigger and stronger than most species. Their weapons could melt through steel like butter. They had conquered 12 star systems in just 2 years. Now they were fighting humans. Humans were new to galactic war. They had only joined the Galactic Union 5 years ago. Most aliens thought humans were weak. They were small, soft, and had no natural weapons like claws or thick skin. Their technology was basic compared to other species. Everyone expected the Vorthans to crush them quickly. Kira walked toward the human military base. Her crystalline body caught the light from the twin suns above. She was much taller than the humans around her. Her 4 arms moved independently as she recorded everything with her camera devices. A human soldier approached her. He was shorter than her lowest shoulder. His skin was dark and his eyes were black. He wore simple green clothing that looked like it could not stop a child's toy weapon. "You must be the reporter," the human said. His voice was calm, too calm for someone in a war zone. "I am Captain Li Wujin. Welcome to Hell's Kitchen." Kira's translator device worked on the words, but Hell's Kitchen made no sense. "Is that the name of this base?" she asked. Li smiled. It was not a happy smile. "It's what we call any place where we're about to cook something." Before Kira could ask what he meant, alarms started ringing. Li's face did not change. He just pointed toward a building. "You might want to get to the observation bunker. The show is about to start." Kira followed him through the base. She noticed something strange. The humans were not running around in panic like most species did before battle. They moved with purpose. Some were humming songs. Others were laughing at jokes. One young soldier was writing what looked like a letter. "Are your people not afraid?" Kira asked. Li looked at her with those dark eyes. "Fear is just information. It tells you that death is possible. We already know that." The observation bunker had thick walls and small windows. Through them, Kira could see the mining colony of New Sol in the distance. 20,000 humans lived there. Smoke was rising from several buildings. "Vorthon forces are attacking the colony," Li explained. "They have about 5,000 soldiers, 50 hover tanks, and air support. We have 200 Marines." Kira did the math in her head. The humans were outnumbered 25 to 1. "Will you retreat?" she asked. Li laughed. It was a sound that made Kira's skin crawl. "Retreat to where? This is our planet now. We don't have anywhere else to go." Through her camera, Kira watched the battle begin. Vorthan hover tanks moved toward the colony like metal beasts. Their energy weapons lit up the sky. Buildings exploded into fire and smoke. Then something impossible happened. A single human soldier ran out from behind a destroyed building. He was carrying what looked like a metal tube. Kira recognized him from earlier. It was Private Choi Min-soo, the young man who had been writing a letter. He could not be older than 20 standard years. Choi ran straight toward a Vorthon tank. Energy bolts flew around him. One hit his shoulder and spun him around. He kept running. He reached the tank and climbed on top of it. Kira watched him stick his metal tube into an opening and jump away. The tank exploded in a ball of fire. But Choi was not done. He picked up weapons from dead Vorthan soldiers and ran toward the next tank. More energy bolts hit him. His leg was bleeding badly. He still kept moving. "Why does he not retreat?" Kira whispered. "Because those are his people in that colony," Li said simply. Choi destroyed 2 more tanks before a Vorthan energy bolt hit him in the chest. He fell to the ground. Kira thought he was dead. Then she saw him moving. He was crawling toward another tank, dragging an explosive device behind him. "Someone stop him!" Kira shouted. "He's going to die!" Li looked at her with surprise. Of course he is. That's the point." Choi reached the fourth tank and destroyed it. This time, he did not get up. But something strange happened to the Vorthon forces. Even though they had killed one human soldier, they seemed afraid. Their attacks became less organized. Some of their soldiers started moving backward. "They've never seen anything like this before," Lee explained. "Most species fight to live. We fight to make our deaths count." The battle continued for 6 hours. Kira watched human after human charge into certain death. Each time they took Vorton's soldiers with them. Each time the Vorthons became more nervous. The worst moment came when Sergeant Park Da-un volunteered for what humans called a suicide mission. The Vorthons were trying to bring reinforcements through a mountain pass. If they succeeded, the colony would fall. Park took enough explosives to bring down half the mountain. She had to place them by hand and detonate them manually. There was no way to escape. "I'll go with her," Kira said. She was not sure why. Lee shook his head. "This is not your fight. And besides, she wants to go alone." Kira watched Park walk toward the mountain pass. The sergeant was humming a song as she walked. Later, Kira learned it was called Ari Rang, an ancient human song about separation and longing. Park placed the explosives while Vorthon soldiers shot at her. She was hit multiple times but kept working. When she was finished, she stood up on a rock where everyone could see her. She waved at the human base. Then she triggered the explosives. The mountain pass collapsed in a roar of stone and dust. The Vorthon reinforcements were trapped on the other side. Park Da-un was buried under 1,000,000 tons of rock. The remaining Vorthon forces retreated that night. Kira tried to write her report 3 times. Each time she deleted it and started over. How could she explain a species that treated death like a tool? How could she describe soldiers who sang songs while walking into suicide missions? Finally, she sent a short message to her editors. "Humans are not what we expected. Send more reporters. This war is going to last longer than anyone thought." But even as she wrote those words, Kira knew she was wrong. The war would not last long. It would end quickly. The question was not whether humans would win or lose. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humans considered victory. Kira had been with Captain Lee's unit for 3 weeks when they were sent to Fortress Busan. The name sounded peaceful, but the reality was anything but calm. The fortress was a massive supply depot built into the side of a mountain. It had been under siege for 47 days. The numbers were terrifying. 15,000 Vorthon soldiers surrounded the fortress. Inside, there were only 1,000 human defenders. The Vorthons had been using bioweapons that turned the air itself into poison. The ground around the fortress was dead. No plants grew, no animals lived. Even the rocks had changed color. "Why do you stay here?" Kira asked Lee as they walked through the fortress tunnels. "You could retreat to another position." Lee stopped walking and pointed to a map on the wall. Red lines showed where Vorthon forces were located. Blue dots showed human positions throughout the galaxy. "If we leave this place, the Vorthons get enough supplies to attack 15 other human colonies," Lee explained. "Those colonies have families, children, old people who cannot fight. So we stay here and make sure the Vorthons don't get those supplies." Kira looked at the map more carefully. The blue dots were very small compared to the red lines. "How many humans are fighting in this war?" "Not enough," Lee said simply. "We have about 2 million soldiers spread across 30 star systems. Yeah, Vortans have 20 million soldiers and better weapons." The math was simple and horrible. Humans were outnumbered 10 to 1. They should have surrendered months ago. Instead, they were fighting harder than ever. Dr. Yoon Sora arrived that morning with a team of scientists. Kira had never seen anything like her. Dr. Yoon worked with samples of Vorthon bioweapons that could kill most species just by being in the same room. She handled them like they were interesting puzzles. "The molecular structure is quite elegant," Dr. Yoon told Kira while examining a sample of poison gas. The Vorthons designed it to attack the nervous system of carbon-based life forms. Very efficient. Kira stayed as far away from the samples as possible. Are you not afraid of being poisoned? Dr. Yoon looked surprised by the question. Fear would make my hands shake. Shaking hands would cause mistakes. Mistakes would kill my colleagues. Therefore, fear is inefficient. She said this while holding a vial of liquid that could kill everyone in the fortress if it broke. Later that day, Kira met Corporal Kim Jae-ho, the unit medic. He was treating soldiers in what humans called a field hospital. It was really just a large room with beds and medical equipment. Most of the soldiers on the beds were badly wounded. Kim was writing numbers in a notebook. Kira looked over his shoulder and saw lists of names with percentages next to them. What are those numbers? She asked. Survival chances, Kim said without looking up. Johnson here has a 60% chance of living through the next week. Martinez has 30%. Williams has 5%. Kira was horrified. You predict who will die? Kim nodded. It helps me decide how to use medical supplies. If I have 1 dose of medicine and 2 patients, I give it to the one who is more likely to live. Basic math. But what about hope? What about fighting to save everyone? Kim looked at her with tired eyes. Hope is nice. Math keeps people alive. A soldier on one of the beds heard their conversation. His name was Private Han Gi-seok, and his legs were badly burned from a Vorthon energy weapon. He should have been in terrible pain, but he was smiling. Don't mind Kim, Han said to Kira. He acts cold, but he saved more lives than anyone in this unit. He just doesn't want to admit he cares. Kim ignored the comment and continued writing in his notebook. We can lose 60% of our current force and still hold this position for another month. 60%? Kira repeated. That means 600 people will die. Probably, Kim agreed. But if we hold for another month, the Vorthons will have to use their reserve forces. That will weaken their attacks on other positions. Other humans will live because we died here. Han nodded from his bed. It's like a trade. Our lives for their lives. The math always works out in the end. That night, the Vorthons launched their biggest attack yet. Kira watched from the fortress, walls as thousands of enemy soldiers charged up the mountain. Their energy weapons lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. The human defenders had very little ammunition left. Kira expected them to retreat into the tunnels and surrender. Instead, something incredible happened. Captain Lee gave an order that made no sense. Fix bayonets. The humans attached long knives to the ends of their rifles. These were primitive. Weapons that belonged in a museum, not a modern battlefield. But every human soldier prepared their bayonet like it was the most natural thing in the world. Are you going to fight energy weapons with knives? Kira asked in disbelief. Lee checked his bayonet and smiled that same cold smile. Sometimes the old ways work best. The Vorthans reached the fortress walls. They had energy shields, powered armor, and weapons that could melt through steel. The humans had knives and determination. The humans charged. Kira had never seen anything like it. 1,000 human soldiers ran straight into 5,000 Vorthon troops. They were outnumbered 5-1. Their weapons were hundreds of years, out of date. They should have been slaughtered in seconds. Instead, the Vorthons broke and ran. It made no sense. The Vorthons had every advantage. They were bigger, stronger, and better armed. But something about humans running at them with sharp metal sticks terrified them completely. Private Choi Min-soo, the young soldier from the colony battle, was in the charge. Kira watched him stab a Vorthon soldier with his bayonet, then turned to face 3 more enemies. An energy bolt hit him in the stomach. He fell to his knees, blood pouring from the wound. Any reasonable person would have surrendered. Choi used his last strength to pull the pin from a grenade. He hugged it to his chest and threw himself at a group of Vorthon officers. The explosion killed him instantly. It also killed the Vorthon commanders who were coordinating the attack. As Choi was dying, he looked at Kira and whispered, Tell my mother I did my duty. The Vorthon attack failed completely. They retreated to their camps and did not attack again for 5 days. That night, Kira tried to write another report. Again, she found herself deleting everything and starting over. How could she explain soldiers who calculated their own deaths like math problems? How could she describe a species that charged energy weapons with kitchen knives and somehow won? She finally sent a simple message. Human military tactics do not follow standard patterns. Recommend sending military analysts to study their methods. Her editor sent back a confused reply. Are they winning or losing? Kira looked out at the fortress walls where human soldiers were already preparing for the next attack. Many of them would die tomorrow. They knew this. They were still laughing and telling jokes. I don't think winning or losing means the same thing to humans as it does to us, she wrote back. But she was starting to suspect that humans had a very different definition of victory, one that had nothing to do with staying alive. The war had turned bad for humanity. Kira could see it in the numbers that Captain Lee showed her every morning. Red marks on the star maps showed Vorthon victories. Blue marks showed human positions. Every day, there were more red marks and fewer blue ones. The Vorthans had pushed human forces back to their home solar system. Earth's colonies on Mars and the outer planets had fallen one by one. Now, the remnants of Lee's unit were on Luna, Earth's moon, preparing for what military reports called the final stand. Kira had been with the humans for 4 months now. She had watched them fight impossible battles and somehow survive, but this time felt different. This time, there was nowhere left to retreat. Luna's surface was covered with strange monuments. Kira had never seen anything like them. Thousands of stone markers stretched across the gray landscape like a cemetery that went on forever. Each marker had names carved into it. Some had dates that went back thousands of Earth years. What are these? Kira asked as she walked between the monuments with Captain Lee. War memorials, Lee said simply. Every human who died in battle gets their name carved here. We've been fighting wars for a very long time. Kira looked at the dates more carefully. The oldest ones were from something called World War I and World War II. Then came conflicts she had never heard of. Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine. The list went on and on. How many wars have humans fought? She asked. Lee stopped walking and thought for a moment. Among ourselves? Maybe 10,000 major conflicts in recorded history. Against other species? This is our first. The idea was shocking. Most galactic species had maybe 1 or 2 civil wars in their entire history. Humans had fought 10,000 wars against each other before they even met aliens. Why do you fight so much? Kira asked. Practice, Lee said, with that cold smile. General Bei Haiyan-Wu met them at the command center. He was an older human with gray hair and scars on his hands. His office was filled with books about something called military history. The titles made Kira uncomfortable: The Art of War, On War, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Captain Lee tells me you want to understand human warfare, General Bei said to Kira. Let me show you something. He activated a holographic display that showed battle scenes from human history. Kira watched human soldiers fighting in conditions that should have killed them. They fought in frozen mountains, burning deserts, and muddy fields. They used weapons that seemed primitive compared to modern technology. This is Stalingrad, General Bai explained as the display showed humans fighting in a destroyed city. 2 million soldiers died here. The battle lasted 5 months. We consider it one of our greatest victories. But so many people died, Kira whispered. Yes, but we learned something important. We learned that humans can survive anything if they believe their cause is right. The display changed to show another battle. This time, humans were fighting on a small island. They were outnumbered and had no way to escape. Iwo Jima, General Bei said. 36 days of fighting. 7,000 Americans died taking an island that was only 8 square kilometers. The enemy fought from underground tunnels and refused to surrender. Did you win? Kira asked. Eventually. But that's not the important part. The important part is that we learned how to fight an enemy who would rather die than surrender. Very useful lesson. The display showed dozens of other battles. Each one taught humans something new about war. How to fight in space. How to fight underwater. How to fight when outnumbered. How to fight when there was no hope of winning. Every battle we ever fought taught us something about dying well, General Bay concluded. We've been preparing for this war for thousands of years without knowing it. Dr. Yoon Sora had set up a laboratory in the deepest tunnels under Luna's surface. When Kira found her, she was working with samples of Vorthon bioweapons again. But this time, she was not just studying them, she was changing them. "What are you doing?" Kira asked. Dr. Yoon did not look up from her work. "Making improvements. Vorthon bioweapons are designed to kill quickly, but quick death is not always the most effective approach." Kira felt cold despite the warm air in the tunnel. "You're making them worse?" "More useful," Dr. Yoon corrected. "A weapon that kills in 5 minutes causes panic and retreat. A weapon that kills in 5 hours causes the enemy to waste resources caring for the dying. Much more efficient." "But that's horrible." Dr. Yoon finally looked at Kira. Her eyes were the same cold black as Captain Lee's. "The Vorthons started using bioweapons on our civilian colonies 3 months ago. 60 million humans died from their diseases. Children, old people, pregnant mothers. Did you think we would not respond? But you're talking about using them on Earth, your own planet. If Luna falls, the Vorthons will invade Earth. 8 billion humans live there. We've evacuated most of them, but some chose to stay behind. If the Vorthons take our planet, they'll find some very unpleasant surprises waiting for them." That night, Kira met Corporal Kim Jae-ho in the medical bay. He was treating soldiers who had been exposed to radiation from damaged reactor cores. Many of them were dying slowly from radiation poisoning. "How can you stay so calm?" Kira asked him. "Everyone around you is dying." Kim continued working as he talked. "I've been a medic for 12 years. I've seen thousands of people die. You learn to accept it. But don't you feel sad? Don't you grieve?" Kim paused in his work and looked at her. "Grief is something you do after the battle is over. Right now, the battle is still going on." A young soldier on one of the medical beds heard their conversation. His name was Private Lee Dong-hyun, and his entire body was covered with bandages from burn injuries. "Kim saved my life twice," Lee told Kira. "Once on Fortress Busan and once here on Luna. But he's never said thank you, and I've never said you're welcome. We don't have time for that kind of thing." Kim nodded and continued treating patients. "We're already dead. We decided that 3 months ago when we chose to make our last stand here. Now we're just choosing how to make our deaths useful." "You keep saying that," Kira said, "but you're still alive." "For now," Kim agreed. "But death is not the worst thing that can happen to a soldier. The worst thing is dying for no reason. We're making sure our deaths have meaning." The Vorthon attack on Luna began the next morning. Their ships filled the space around the moon like metal sharks. Energy weapons lit up the lunar surface. Human defensive positions exploded one by one. Kira watched the battle from the command center. General Bay was calmly giving orders as reports of human casualties came in. 10% losses, 20%, 30%. "Should we surrender?" Kira asked. General Bay looked at her with surprise. "Surrender to who? The Vorthons don't take prisoners. They never have. This is a war of extinction." "Then what's the point of fighting?" "The point is to make them remember us. Every Vorthon soldier who dies here will never fight our colonists on other worlds. Every Vorthon ship we destroy is one less ship attacking human civilians. We're buying time with our lives." Captain Lee's voice came over the communication system. "Final defensive positions are falling. Beginning evacuation to Earth orbital stations. Less than 300 humans were left alive out of the original 10,000 defenders. They had held Luna for 6 days against impossible odds. As they retreated to their ships, Kira heard them singing. She recognized the song. It was Ari Rang, the same song Sergeant Park Da-un had hummed before she died in the mountain pass. Why? Are they singing? Kira asked General Bay. Because they're going home, he said simply, and because they know what they have to do next. Luna had fallen. Kira floated in zero gravity inside one of Earth's orbital defense stations, watching the last 300 human defenders prepare for what everyone knew was the final battle. Through the station's windows, she could see Earth, turning slowly below them, blue and green and beautiful. It was also completely empty. "Where is everyone?" Kira asked Captain Lee as they drifted through the station's corridors. Below them, Earth's cities were dark. No lights, no movement, no signs of the 8 billion humans who had lived there just weeks ago. "Gone," Lee said, simply. "We evacuated them to safe locations." All of them? 8 billion people? Most of them. Some chose to stay behind. We didn't force anyone to leave. Kira had covered many wars, but she had never seen an entire planet evacuated. The logistics alone should have been impossible. Moving 8 billion people would require thousands of ships and months of planning. "How long did you plan this evacuation?" she asked. Lee was quiet for a long moment. "About 200 years." Before Kira could ask what he meant, alarms began, ringing throughout the station. The Vorthon fleet had arrived. Hundreds of massive warships emerged from hyperspace around Earth. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with single shots. General Bay's voice came over the communication system. "All stations, this is final battle protocol. You know what to do." Kira had learned to fear that calm tone in human voices. It usually meant something terrible was about to happen. The orbital stations around Earth were not really military bases. They were more like small cities floating in space. Each one had shops, restaurants, living areas, and recreation facilities. Families of human soldiers lived on these stations, but now the families were gone too. Only soldiers remained. "What happened to the civilians on these stations?" Kira asked. "Evacuated with everyone else," Captain Lee replied. "This is a military operation now." Kira noticed something strange about the human soldiers. They were not preparing for battle the way she expected. Instead, they were having what they called a going-away party. Soldiers shared food and drinks. They told stories about their homes and families. Some played music. Others sang songs. Private Choi Min-soo was there. Somehow he had survived Luna despite being wounded so many times. He was sitting with a group of young soldiers, all of them laughing at jokes that Kira did not understand. "How can you be happy?" she asked them. "The Vorthon fleet will destroy these stations in hours." Choi looked up at her with those same dark, calm eyes that all human soldiers seemed to have. "We're not happy about dying. We're happy about going home." But Earth is empty. There's no one down there. "There will be soon," Choi said mysteriously. Dr. Yoon So-ra found Kira later that day. The scientist had dark circles under her eyes and looked like she had not slept in weeks. She was carrying a metal case that she handled very carefully. "I wanted to show you something," Dr. Yoon said. She opened the case to reveal small glass vials filled with different colored liquids. "My final project." Kira stayed back from the case. She had learned to be afraid of Dr. Yoon's experiments. "What are they?" "Modified versions of human biology. I've been working on them since the war started. Each vial contains a different synthetic disease." "You've weaponized human biology?" "Improved it," Dr. Yoon corrected. "These diseases are designed to be carried by living humans for exactly 72 hours before becoming fatal. Long enough to spread through enemy populations, but short enough to ensure the carrier dies before the disease can mutate." The implications were horrifying. "You're planning to infect human soldiers?" "Volunteers only. We have more volunteers than we need." Kira thought she had seen the worst of human warfare. She was wrong. "This is biological suicide bombing." "This is biological warfare," Dr. Yoon said calmly. "The Vorthons started it when they used bioweapons on our colonies. We're finishing it. The case contained enough synthetic diseases to kill every Vorthon in the galaxy." Dr. Yoon had turned human biology itself into a weapon of mass extinction. "Why are you showing me this?" Kira asked. "Because I want you to understand. When the Vorthons capture these stations, they'll take prisoners for interrogation. Some of those prisoners will be carrying my gifts. The diseases will spread through Vorthan military bases, then to their ships, then to their home worlds. You're planning genocide. I'm planning victory. There's a difference." That night, General Bay called Kira to the command center. Through the windows, she could see Vorthon ships moving into attack positions around Earth. Their energy weapons were charging up, ready to destroy the orbital stations. "I have something to tell you," General Bay said, "about human military strategy." He activated a holographic display that showed star maps of the galaxy. Red dots marked Vorthon military bases. Blue dots marked human colonies. But there were also purple dots scattered everywhere, thousands of them. "What are the purple dots?" Kira asked. "Humans living in non-human space. Students, workers, traders, refugees, tourists. People who left Earth before the war started and never came back." Kira counted the dots. There were millions of them. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because those people aren't really students and workers and refugees," General Bay said quietly. "They're sleeper agents. They've been in place for decades waiting for the right moment to activate." The truth hit Kira like a physical blow. "You planned this war." "We planned for the possibility of this war. There's a difference. We knew that eventually humanity would face an extinction-level threat. We've been preparing for that day since we first reached the stars. But the Vorthans attacked first. They started this conflict." General Bay smiled, that same cold smile she had seen so many times. "Did they? Or did we manipulate events to make them think attacking us was their idea?" The holographic display changed to show communication intercepts, economic data, and diplomatic records. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Human traders had been selling the Vorthons specific technologies. Human diplomats had been spreading rumors about human weakness. Human refugees had been providing intelligence about human military capabilities. All of it was false. All of it was designed to make the Vorthons think that humans would be easy to conquer. "We needed them to attack us on our terms," General Bay explained. "A defensive war that would justify any response. A war that would unite all humans against a common enemy. A war that would let us use methods that would normally be considered war crimes. You sacrificed millions of your own people to justify this deception. We sacrificed millions to save billions. The Vorthons were always going to be a threat to human expansion. Better to fight them now, when we could control the circumstances, than later when they were stronger." The Vorthan attack began at dawn. Energy weapons tore through the orbital station's defenses. Human soldiers fought back with everything they had, but they were outnumbered 100 to 1. Kira watched station after station fall to Vorthon forces. Each time, she expected the humans to surrender. Each time, they fought until every last soldier was dead, except for the ones who let themselves be captured. Private Choi Min-soo was one of them. Kira watched through security cameras as Vorthon soldiers dragged him aboard their ship for interrogation. He was smiling. 72 hours. Later, Vorthon soldiers throughout the fleet began falling ill with mysterious diseases. The orbital battle lasted 6 days. When it was over, the Vorthons controlled the space around Earth. They had captured 47 human prisoners for interrogation. All 47 prisoners were carrying Dr. Yoon So-ra's synthetic diseases. As Vorthon ships began their descent toward Earth's surface, General Bay's final message was broadcast to the galaxy. "We came in peace. We die in pieces. Remember us." But Kira was beginning to understand that human definitions of victory and defeat were very different from everyone else's. The Vorthons had won the battle for Earth. They had no idea what was waiting for them on the planet's surface. Kira stood on the bridge of the Vorthon flagship, watching Earth burn below them. The planet's surface was covered with fires that could be seen from space. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were now smoking ruins. The Vorthons had won the greatest victory in their military history. So why did everyone look so afraid? Commander Vashiti, the Vorthon officer in charge of the fleet, had invited Kira aboard to document their triumph. As a war correspondent, she was supposed to be neutral. But after months with the human forces, she found herself hoping the Vorthons would lose. The human resistance was stronger than expected, Commander Vashiti told her. His reptilian features were hard to read, but his voice sounded nervous. "But we have achieved total victory. Earth is ours." Kira looked at the damage reports scrolling across the command screens. The Vorthons had lost 30% of their fleet taking Earth. For any other species, that would be considered a devastating defeat. But they had won, so it was officially a victory. How many human survivors did you capture? Kira asked. Very few. Most chose to fight to the death rather than surrender, typical human behavior. But something was wrong with the Vorthan soldiers. Kira noticed it during her first day aboard the flagship. They were getting sick. Not all at once, but one by one. It started with symptoms that looked like common illnesses: fever, headaches, fatigue. Then soldiers started dying. The Vorthon medical team was confused. The diseases did not match any known pathogens. They seemed to be combinations of different viruses and bacteria, engineered to attack specific biological systems. Dr. Yoon So-ra's final gift to the galaxy. Commander Vashiti tried to hide the growing medical crisis, but Kira could see the truth in the daily reports. 10 soldiers sick, then 50, then 200. The diseases were spreading through the fleet faster than the medical teams could respond. Are you planning to request medical assistance from the Galactic Union? Kira asked during one of her interviews with the commander. Vashiti's reptilian eyes narrowed. The Vorthon Empire does not request assistance. We solve our own problems. But they could not solve this problem. The diseases were too complex, too well designed. Every time the medical teams thought they had found a cure, the pathogens mutated into something new. 3 weeks after the fall of Earth, Kira received a message that should have been impossible. It came through an encrypted channel that only humans should have known about. This is Captain Lee Woo-jin, broadcasting from the ruins of Seoul. If you can hear this message, please respond. Kira looked around the bridge to make sure no Vorthon officers were listening. Then she activated her personal communicator. Captain Lee, how are you alive? I watched your orbital station explode. Lee's voice was calm as always. I was never on the orbital stations. I've been on Earth this whole time preparing for the Vorthon occupation. But Earth was evacuated. There's no one left. There are more of us than you think. We've been living underground, waiting for the right moment to begin the next phase of our plan. Kira felt confused. What plan? The war is over. The Vorthons won. Lee's laugh was cold and bitter. The Vorthans won a battle. The war is just beginning. Over the following weeks, Kira began to understand what Captain Lee meant. The evacuated human civilians had not fled to distant colonies. They were scattered throughout the galaxy, embedded in every major alien civilization. They were refugees on Andorian worlds, working in factories and hospitals. They were students on Centauri universities, learning alien technologies. They were traders on Rigel stations, building economic relationships. They were tourists on vacation planets, making friends with local populations. They had been there for decades, becoming part of alien societies, marrying alien spouses, raising hybrid children, building lives that looked completely normal, until they received their activation codes. The first reports came from Vorthon military bases throughout the galaxy. Supply problems, equipment failures, communication breakdowns. Nothing dramatic. Enough to suggest sabotage, but serious enough to disrupt military operations. Then came reports of mysterious illnesses spreading through Vorthon civilian populations. Diseases that seemed harmless at first but became deadly over time. Diseases that were immune to standard treatments. Commander Vashati called Kira to his private office after receiving particularly bad news from the Vorthon home worlds. His hands were shaking as he read the reports. 17 military bases have reported critical supply shortages, he told her. Our main shipyard on Vorthos Prime has suffered a reactor failure that will take months to repair. And now our medical facilities are overwhelmed with patients suffering from unknown diseases. Are you suspecting sabotage? Kira asked. We are investigating all possibilities, but the humans are extinct. Earth is destroyed. Who else could be responsible? Kira thought about the millions of purple dots on General Bay's star map. Maybe the humans were more widespread than you realized. That night, Corporal Kim Jae-ho contacted her through the same encrypted channel. He was alive and working as a medic in a Vorthon refugee camp on Earth's surface. Kim, how did you survive the orbital bombardment? I was never in orbit. I've been down here the whole time, helping human survivors. There are more of us than the Vorthans know. But I saw you die on Luna. I saw your medical station get destroyed. You saw what we wanted you to see. We needed the Vorthans to believe they had won completely. If they thought there was still organized resistance, they would have been more careful. Kim explained the truth about the human evacuation. Yes, most of Earth's population had been moved to safety, but millions of volunteers had stayed behind, hidden in underground bunkers and abandoned buildings. They were living like ghosts in the ruins of their own planet. What are you waiting for? Kira asked. For the Vorthans to realize they can't hold what they've conquered, for their military to collapse under the weight of our sabotage, for their leaders to understand that victory over humanity comes with a price they cannot afford to pay. The diseases were spreading faster now, not just among Vorthan soldiers, but among their families on the home worlds. The pathogens had been designed to be especially contagious in Vorthon biology. Dr. Yoon Sora had studied Vorthon physiology for years before the war started. She knew exactly how to create diseases that would spread through their population like wildfire. Commander Vashati called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. Kira was allowed to attend as a witness to history. The situation has become untenable, the commander announced. Our casualties from disease now exceed our combat losses during the entire Earth campaign. Our supply lines have been disrupted beyond repair. Our homeworlds are requesting immediate medical assistance. Are you considering withdrawal from human space? One of his officers asked. We are considering all options. But Kira knew the truth. The Vorthans were not considering withdrawal. They were planning it. The diseases had spread too far to contain. The sabotage had crippled their military infrastructure. The cost of occupying human space had become greater than any possible benefit. Private Choi Min-soo contacted her that night. He was alive and leading a resistance cell in the ruins of New Seoul? Choi, I thought you were captured and killed weeks ago. I was captured. I let them interrogate me for 3 days, long enough for Dr. Yoon's gifts to spread through their ship. Then I escaped during the confusion when half their crew started getting sick. How many of you are left? More than enough. We've been preparing for this moment our entire lives. Every human who stayed on Earth knew they might have to live like this for years. We're ready. Choi explained the final phase of the human plan. They were not trying to drive the Vorthons away with military force. They were making occupation impossible through pure persistence. Every day the Vorthans stay here, they lose more soldiers to disease and more equipment to sabotage. Every day they stay, their situation at home gets worse as the diseases spread. Eventually, they'll realize that conquering humanity was the worst mistake in their history. The end came suddenly. Commander Vashati received orders from the Vorthan High Command to begin immediate withdrawal from all human space. The official reason was strategic redeployment to counter new threats. The real reason was that the Vorthan Empire was collapsing from within. As the last Vorthan ships prepared to leave Earth orbit, Kira received one final message from Captain Lee. "Tell the galaxy what you saw here. Tell them how this war really ended. Make sure they understand that humans don't fight wars to win territory or resources. We fight wars to make sure our enemies never want to fight us again." 5 years later, Kira stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Union Justice Building, looking down at New Geneva. The city had been completely rebuilt after the war. It was more beautiful than before, with parks and monuments and buildings that seemed to reach toward the stars. It was hard to believe this planet had been a burning wasteland just a few years ago. Kira was here for the War Crimes Tribunal. The Galactic Union was prosecuting humanity for excessive brutality in warfare and psychological warfare against civilian populations. She was the star witness, the alien journalist who had documented humanity's darkest moments. Captain Lee, Wu Jin met her at the spaceport. He was General Lee now, wearing a simple uniform with very few decorations. His eyes still held that same calm certainty that had frightened her so much during the war. "Welcome back to Earth," he said as they walked through the terminal. "I hope you find our reconstruction efforts satisfactory." Kira looked around at the bustling spaceport. Humans mixed freely with aliens from dozens of species. Children played together regardless of how many arms or eyes they had. It looked like the peaceful future everyone had hoped for. "How did you rebuild so quickly?" she asked. "We had help. Lots of help. It turns out that other species are very eager to assist humanity with reconstruction projects." They drove through the city in an electric vehicle that moved silently through streets lined with trees. Kira noticed monuments on every corner, not celebrating military victories, but honoring the dead from both sides of the war. Even Vorthon soldiers have memorials here, she observed. "They died far from home, fighting for what they believed was right," Lee replied. "That deserves respect, even if we disagreed with their methods." The trial was being held in a massive courthouse that could accommodate representatives from every member species of the Galactic Union. Kira had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place. Dr. Yoon So-ra was sitting in the defendants section, reading a book about molecular biology. She looked exactly the same as during the war, calm, focused, completely untroubled by the accusations against her. "Dr. Yoon has won 3 Galactic Peace Prizes since the war ended," Lee told Kira quietly. "Her work on developing cures for the diseases she created has saved millions of lives. She created those diseases in the first place," Kira pointed out. "Yes, and then she spent 5 years making sure they could never be used again, which was always part of the plan. Corporal Kim Jae-ho was there too, now Director Kim of the Galactic Medical Relief Organization. He had testified earlier about human medical practices during the war. His testimony had been clinical, precise, and absolutely terrifying. The prosecution's case was simple. Humanity had violated every known law of warfare. They had used biological weapons, conducted psychological warfare, targeted civilian populations, and committed acts of genocide against the Vorthon species. The defense's case was even simpler. Humanity had won. When Kira took the witness stand, the chief prosecutor asked her to describe what she had seen during the war. She talked about soldiers who calculated their own deaths like math problems. She described humans charging energy weapons with primitive knives. She explained how they had turned their own biology into a weapon of mass destruction. In your professional opinion, the prosecutor asked, did humanity commit war crimes during this conflict? Kira looked out at the courtroom filled with alien representatives. Many of them seemed genuinely horrified by her testimony, but she also noticed something else: fear. They were all afraid of the humans sitting calmly in the defendant's section. I don't know if they committed war crimes, she said finally. I'm not a lawyer, but I know they won a war that everyone said was impossible to win. The defense attorney was a human named Attorney Park G. High. She was small and quiet, but when she spoke, everyone listened. The prosecution wants you to believe that humanity's methods were excessive, Attorney Park said during her opening statement. They want you to forget that the Vorthans started this war by using biological weapons on human civilian colonies. They want you to ignore the fact that the Vorthans never took prisoners and never showed mercy. She activated a holographic display showing casualty figures from the war. 60 million humans died in Vorthan biological attacks before humanity ever responded with similar weapons. 18 billion Vorthans died from human biological weapons after humanity responded. The prosecution calls this excessive. The defense calls it effective. Private Choi Min-soo testified about the human philosophy of warfare. He was older now, with scars from the battles he had survived, but his voice was still calm and certain. We don't fight to destroy our enemies, he told the court. We fight to become the thing they have nightmares about. We want them to tell their children stories about us. We want those stories to keep their children awake at night. Is that not psychological warfare against civilian populations? The prosecutor asked. It's psychological warfare against future wars, Choi replied. If everyone is afraid to fight us, then no one has to die in wars that don't happen. The most shocking testimony came from General Bae Hyun-woo. He revealed the full extent of human planning for galactic warfare. They had been preparing for this conflict for over 2 centuries, ever since first contact with alien species. Every human who left Earth was a potential intelligence asset, he explained. Every cultural exchange was reconnaissance. Every peace treaty was a military exercise. We needed to understand how alien species think, how they fight, how they can be defeated. You manipulated an entire galactic civilization into war, the prosecutor accused. We prepared for the war that was always coming, General Bae replied calmly. The Vorthans were expanding in every direction. They had conquered 12 star systems before they even knew humans existed. It was only a matter of time before they turned their attention to us. The trial revealed the complete scope of human deception. They had studied every galactic species for weaknesses. They had planted agents throughout alien governments. They had even influenced the Galactic Union's own intelligence reports to make humanity seem weaker than they really were. The goal was never to conquer the galaxy, General Bae explained. The goal was to make sure that no one else could conquer us. Kira found herself thinking about all the humans she had met during the war. Captain Lee with his cold certainty. Dr. Yoon with her clinical approach to mass murder. Corporal Kim calculating death rates like a math problem. Private Choi walking into suicide missions with a smile. She had thought they were brave. Now she realized they had been terrifying. The defense called its final witness, a Vorthan survivor named Commander Jektal. He had been one of the few Vorthan officers to survive the war. The diseases had left him scarred and weak, but he was alive. Do you believe humanity committed war crimes? Attorney Park asked him. Commander Jektal was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. I believe humanity showed us what war really means. We thought we were conquerors. We learned we were prey. Would the Vorthan Empire consider attacking humanity again? Never. We have passed laws forbidding any military action against human space. We tell our children stories about the humans who sing while they die. We use those stories to teach them that some species should never be provoked. So humanity's methods were effective? Humanity's methods ensured that this war will never happen again. Not just between us and them, but between any species and them. Everyone in the galaxy now understands what humans are capable of when they feel threatened. The trial lasted 3 months. In the end, the judges reached a unanimous verdict. Humanity was guilty of war crimes, but those crimes had been committed in self-defense against an enemy that showed no mercy. The sentence was unusual. Instead of punishment, humanity was required to serve as the galaxy's peacekeeping force. Any species that started a war of aggression would find themselves facing human intervention. Kira attended the sentencing ceremony. General Lee accepted the verdict with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the war. "Do you have any statement for the court?" the chief judge asked. "We accept this responsibility," Lee said simply. "We never wanted to be soldiers, but if that's what the galaxy needs us to be, then that's what we'll be." After the trial, Kira tried to write her final report about the war. She started and deleted it dozens of times. How could she explain a species that planned their own extinction? As a military strategy? How could she describe soldiers who treated death like a tool? Finally, she wrote something simple. "I went to document humanity's extinction. Instead, I witnessed the birth of the galaxy's new protectors. They don't conquer worlds. They make worlds grateful they exist. And the most terrifying thing of all, they genuinely believe they're the good guys." She never published the report. Instead, she requested asylum on a distant world at the edge of known space. But even there, she saw human ships arriving with trade goods and medical supplies. The humans were everywhere now. Not as conquerors, but as helpers. They built hospitals and schools. They shared technology and knowledge. They offered aid to anyone who needed it. But everyone remembered the stories. Everyone knew what humans could do when they were threatened. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing tales about the species that turned their own deaths into weapons.